Hello. I firstly want to thank everyone who has watched these last few videos, has commented, asked questions. I am all for answering questions and being as helpful as I can be. So I'm really glad that there are people who are finding the things that I have to say useful. And I wanted to come on here weeks ago at this point, and I definitely had time to, but there were a lot of things happening, and I think being in the thick of it, I decided that ultimately it probably wasn't the best time to talk about things because it was very much heat of the moment. And then the final 2 weeks of the first semester, so summer semester, were pretty intense. We had a lot of exams in a short period of time, and I did kind of record those 2 weeks. So if that's um, interesting to you, then stay tuned for that. I don't know how detailed that will be or anything, but it was just kind of very chaotic. But we made it through. I am now almost done with my first week of the second semester. So I was very much on vacation mode, and I just didn't have a single second to make any updates. So here I am. I just got back from my hospital rotation and I'm pretty exhausted, but I didn't want to just like leave a blank. I kind of wanted to make a video that would close out the first semester nicely. And so I'm going to talk about some of the things that I was struggling with that first semester that I chose not to talk about while it was happening. I think now that I've had time to go through it and process it and learn to be okay with some of the things that I was originally not okay with, I am now in a much better place to level-headedly talk about it. So, just for some background, I chose Columbia because it was the only master's program in New York. And I was always someone that was absolutely positive that I would never go back to school. So when this school journey came up, I thought there's no way I'm going to go back to school for a bachelor's when I can go back to school and get a master's. So that was really my purpose for going. I didn't have any dreams of being at an Ivy League or at Columbia or anything like that. And even then, I have felt pretty disappointed. I don't want to break anyone's dreams, so I'm going to tread quite carefully when I talk about the next few things. But I do think it's important to talk about realistically what it's been like, and then kind of how I'm feeling about it now. So, firstly, there was, in my opinion, and I'll preface this by saying that all of this is just very much my opinion, my viewpoint coming from my life experiences. And I am someone that has kind of high expectations for things, especially when I'm paying so much money to go here. Um, there was a lot of disorganization. There was a lot of busy work, in my opinion. I think they've made a lot of changes this year compared to last year, and some of those changes are not really translating um, practically. So I can very much trace back the reasoning and feel like, oh, I understand why they're having us do these things, but in practice, it doesn't really make sense and it's not actually as helpful as they probably think it is. So I can take a step back and appreciate it from that point of view, but it is hard when you're in it to feel like what you're doing has that great of a purpose, because it felt like some of the assignments and some of the things that we had to kind of do were distracting from our classes and our lessons, which I will say I found to be really like top quality. I think all of my professors from last semester are extremely qualified, not only teachers, but also clinicians. And I'm pretty sure most of them, if not all of them, are currently practicing. And that's really nice because then not only do you get the academic part of it, but you also get tidbits of nursing in the real world from their experience. And so it's really nice to have both of those things come together in class. Um, so I really wanted to focus a lot of my attention and my energy into those classes and really studying and learning and diving deep into the material. Um, but one, because of the pace of the program, it's not always super possible to go that deep. And I think throughout the course of the entire program, you have the opportunity to go deep where it matters. Um, but it just was like some of that other noise was distracting from the classes, in my opinion. Um, there were other things that just kind of felt like the program, this was the first time they were running it or something. Um, and several other students had very similar complaints. So I think there is validity to that sentiment because we all kind of shared it, at least some of the people that I spoke to. An example is that for two of our classes, we also had lab portions that met on a different day with different instructors. And because of the sheer amount of students in the program, we have to be split up somehow. So our lab days were split up over 2 days, and we were all broken up into, I don't know, groups of maybe 20, 25 students. So that's the lab class that we would have was only with those 20, 25 students. And then within that group, we're broken up into about four-ish groups. And each of those four groups will have a different instructor. I think all of those instructors, though I didn't have them all one-on-one, I kind of got to know them a little bit, and they all seem to be very qualified instructors. But I think there was a little bit of a problem where they weren't given proper instruction on what specific things we're supposed to be learning. And so, of course, there's textbook nursing and then there's real world nursing. And a lot of the instructors were showing us how to do all the skills that we needed to learn based on the tips and tricks that they've picked up along the way over their, 5, 10, 15, 20-year career. And so there's just a lot of deviation that happens when you're that deep into your career from standard textbook nursing. And also things change, right, in textbook nursing. So I think had they been given the appropriate resources for all of the students to get the same baseline education, it would have been great. I think they would have all been super qualified to provide that for us. But because there was no baseline, everyone was teaching how they felt was best. And so then that created a lot of confusion among the students because I was taught one way, another student was taught a different way, another student was taught a different way. And if you think about it, I think there are one set of instructors for one day and another set of instructors for another day. So that's like, I don't know, give or take 10 to 15 different ways of teaching us the same thing. So then when we're getting tested on the material, there's just a lot of panic among the students because I'm saying this is how I was taught, and another student that I'm talking to that is studying with me is saying I wasn't taught like that, and now we're like, holy crap, how are we going to be graded? So there was some of that. Then there were just some assignments that we had to do on patients that we have in the hospital. And every clinical rotation also looks very different, um, depending on the hospital, depending on the kind of unit that they're on, and the instructor. So, again, a lot of variation. And I think for something like that, it's a lot more difficult to structure it in the same way for everybody because every hospital is different. So, I think that's fine. But different instructors were looking for different things for the assignments that we had to do, and which also that could have been okay. But I think my main issue with it was that we had to purchase a program that we didn't know we had to purchase until like 1 week before the assignment that we didn't know about was due. And then we had this like mandatory orientation for this new program that we had to purchase, and they still weren't even clear on how it worked. And they said, oh, they just launched it. Like, our apologies. Like, we couldn't have known. And we're like, okay, sure, but then don't give it to us for that week because it was like we did the orientation on Wednesday, the assignment was due on Saturday, and on Friday they changed the requirements of the assignment and people had already submitted and there was no way for you to edit it and just kind of a lot of that going on in different ways throughout other areas of the program. And I also just felt like I understand why they're making us do this. They want us to get into the habit of documenting and coming up with nursing diagnoses and plans of care for patients, et cetera, et cetera. So it kind of um, develops your nursing critical thinking, which is super important and something that I'm still really eager to continue learning because it's fascinating. Um, but it just felt a little bit premature to me because it was my first time being face to face with a patient. And I get that there are other students who might have had medical backgrounds that maybe are more comfortable walking into a room and talking to a patient, whatever, all the things. It also wasn't clear what our expectations were, or rather what was expected of us within that environment. So it was took a little while for me to like even understand what I was doing at the hospital, which I think could have been addressed better. And with that, I really wanted some more time to just spend like one-on-one face-to-face time with patients because it's a very unique thing that unfortunately I think once you're a practicing nurse, you don't have the luxury of doing that anymore because you're like actually on the job and actually responsible for a million different things. Whereas when you're a student, there's this really awesome privilege that you get to just like be there with the patient. And I wish we would have had a little bit more of that before saying, okay, we're going to cut your time short with the patient because you have to go on the computer and spend hours looking through the patient's information so that you can complete your assignment. I think that's something that could have been done. I don't know, they could have like made fake patient profiles and we could have done that on our own time and still kind of develop our clinical reasoning and judgment and piecing things together, while still getting full interaction with patients and like making the most of that during our clinical days. I think for this semester, it would have been a great transition to now start us on like being face to face with the patient, but then also spending time on the computer looking through the chart, et cetera, because that is something that we have to get comfortable with because that is what our jobs will require us to do. So, all in all, I think now I am peace with what happened last semester, but truly, while it was happening, it was really frustrating. It was uh, very disheartening, and it also felt very like I'm being cheated out of my money in a lot of ways. And that sounds really dramatic to say, but it that really, really was the feeling. Now I'm just very much of the mindset that like I can't focus on all the things that go wrong because inevitably when humans do things, things are gonna go wrong. I continue to be a little bit disappointed that my high expectations aren't fully being met in different areas, but I am uh being very purposeful about seeing all the benefits of being in this program. I also, it's hard to compare because I don't know about any other nursing programs. So it might just be that there's so many other nursing programs that are like not great, and this is truly one of the best. Or it could just be that, things need improvement here. Regardless, I have heard that other programs don't get their students out into clinicals right away. They have to kind of wait. And so I'm really grateful that we've been able to go. And by this point, we feel a lot more confident and comfortable. I'm really grateful for our professors who are extremely knowledgeable, so kind, so willing to help. I am thankful in advance for the connections that I'll make because I truly believe that as the program progresses, I'll make more and more connections that will be really helpful for future jobs and different opportunities. I'm very grateful for the people who are in this program. I've met some really wonderful friends, dare I say now. Um, and yeah, overall, I'm thankful for my education and I do wish it weren't so expensive, but I also like it's fine. Out of sight, out of mind. I'm getting the education that I know I need in order to do what I want. And so for that, I'm grateful. Um, yeah, I don't want this to come off as super negative or super like maybe reconsider coming here or anything like that because I think had someone told me all of these things, I still would have chosen to come here because of my initial reason for coming here. I want the master's. I want an accelerated program. I want the challenge. I like the rigor. And so here I am. But just to like manage expectations, I think it would have been really useful for me to hear these kinds of things, which I think a lot of us are kind of scared to talk about. Um, and just is what it is. I think as well we're have like access to really great hospitals. Um, and that's a huge benefit as well. So yeah, I will make another video soon about this upcoming semester and how this first week has gone. I still have one more day left. Expectations for the rest of the semester, kind of how I did for the last one, schedule, all that kind of stuff, if you're interested in that. And like I said, maybe keep your eyes peeled for uh like more vlog style video about the last couple of weeks in the summer semester with final exams and all of that. Um, yeah, I hope this was helpful. I don't mean to discourage anyone. If anything, I want to encourage you to continue on your path and figure out what program is best for you, why it's right for you. Um, kind of a different perspective to weigh out pros and cons. For me, there was no other school, so there wouldn't have been any pros and cons to weigh out anyway. But, you know, just to have a little bit more of a well-rounded image, maybe. And yeah, I'm happy to continue answering questions and continue making any videos that might be useful or helpful um, insight into what life is as a nursing student here. Okay, well, I hope you enjoyed. I hope you are having a lovely day and week, and I'll see you in my next one. Thank you. Bye.